everyone for coming here. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I don't want to take up all of your evening. I know some of you are probably heading out for spring break as well as soon as this is over. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you for those of you that came tonight, and those of you that couldn't make it. Hopefully you can watch the video, and this will clear up some questions that you might have about the new variable tuition. So before we get started, let's go ahead and pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing all of these parents and community members, people here to help the school out. Thank you for bringing us all together tonight and learning new things about which direction you're taking St. Joseph Catholic School and the rest of the Archdiocese. And please make our school grow and bring in more families and continue to keep our families here within the school. And we can do that with your help, Lord, as we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. St. Joseph,
pray for us.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Again, thank you those of you that are just coming in here. So tonight, I'm just going to speak briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jay and Gina, who are from Seeds of Hope. I figured you guys, I could try and explain this variable tuition model to you, but I would probably not get it correct. So I want to make sure that it comes from the actual experts. So as you know, how many of you received the letter and got a chance to look at the letter on the tuition for next year? Okay. So just so you're aware, we did have to increase our tuition slightly, and the letter, basically got down to the nitty-gritty of why, the reasoning behind it. Obviously, my goal is to increase enrollment here at St. Joseph Catholic School. If we increase enrollment, what is that going to do for everybody? That's going to lower our tuition. And so I'm hoping that this is only a temporary increase, that we don't have to keep increasing it. So my goal and my sort of vow to all of you is that I'm going to do my best I can to bring new families here to St. Joe's, and hopefully keep those of you that are here at St. Joe's, keep you here. I want to keep everybody here. I like all of you. So you guys are part of the family here. So and I'm more than happy to answer questions if you'd like to speak with me afterwards relating to tuition specifically. I did have a couple people point out, I guess it was in the Denver Catholic Register, that with the variable tuition model that, if, let's say you make $20 million a year, that you might have to pay more than what the set tuition was. That is not correct. I just want to put that out there. Okay, you will pay what we set the tuition at. So what did we set the tuition at was the $56.15 for affiliated. Now, does everyone understand what affiliated tuition means? Does anyone not understand what affiliated tuition means? Okay, so you guys all understand that. So it'll start at $56.15. Now, keep in mind, if you look on the chart, we did actually give a higher increase for each additional child. Before it was only 3%, and now I believe it's like 5, 10, 15%. So we've tried to give you a little bit more increase. Now, the game changer for most people, or some people, will be the right size variable tuition model. So this is going to help some families out that really felt like they were right on the cusp. I don't know if we can afford it. With that being said, I don't want to lose a single family. So if maybe you don't qualify for the tuition variable model, and you're like, Mr. Blanco, this is really, really tough. I want to sit down with you guys. I don't want you to just say, well, we can't afford it, we're out of here. I don't want new families to say, well, we can't afford it, we're not going here. Because that's what I've heard from people. Well, we would have come here last year, but we couldn't afford it. That's got to go away. Okay? I can go and talk to people that are willing to help out, that can help you and your family out. So I don't want to lose a single person because they just feel like, well, we can't afford it. Okay? Catholic education and And St. Joe's is very important. And having taught kids last year, 8th graders specifically, and hearing what they're telling me this year about how we prepared them to face what's out there in the public schools. I was a public school teacher, so I know the kinds of things that unfortunately are there in the public schools, that a lot of public school teachers' hands are tied, even if they're Catholic. So I want to keep all of the families here and talk to me. I want to work with you. So without wasting any more of your time or rambling on and on, I want to turn it over to Jay Clark from Seeds of Hope. He's going to present to us, or Gina, whichever one of you. They'll present to us, and then afterwards, if you have questions, you can ask them, and I'll be sticking around if you have questions as well. I can answer those questions. Okay?
Thanks. I'd like to do it without the microphone. Can everybody hear me okay? Back?
Not really.
It wouldn't be good with the video either.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're such a hands guy.
I know.
It's going to be bad because I'll be doing this.
I know.
I'll try my best. First off, is this on? Okay. First off, are all of you, do you have kids in the school right now? Is everybody?
Both are up.
Okay. The first thing I want to say, and if you take anything from me being here, do I have to stand up too? Because I'm a wanderer. I'm a hands guy and I wander. If you take anything from us being up here tonight, I would like for you to know how grateful we are for you sending your kids here. We know Catholic school is a choice, and a choice that requires sacrifice. We understand that. That's one of the reasons we're here to talk with you about this new program. But we are just so grateful that you all would make that choice and consciously make that sacrifice to send your kids here and help build the kingdom of heaven through St. Joseph. So if you take nothing else from what I tell you tonight, please know how grateful we are that you have made this choice and made this sacrifice. The variable tuition model that we're going to talk about, what I thought we would do is I can kind of give you an overview, and then we'll just walk through the application and kind of give you commentary as we walk through that about different things, why we're asking for things, and how it works. This is all part of the Archbishop's overarching vision for Catholic schools, which is really to be worthy of the name Catholic. And there's really kind of 4 pillars that he's trying to build the church on. One is to be on mission to form intentional disciples of Jesus. One is to be excellent in every way. One is to be accessible to all. One is to be sustainable for the future. What we're going to talk about tonight really kind of addresses those last 2. How we make the schools accessible to all, and how we try and make them a little bit more sustainable for the future. As Nick said, the goals of this program are really pretty simple. What we're trying to do is make the schools more accessible and help grow enrollment. We want to keep you in our schools that have already made this choice, and we want to bring more people in who don't know the great benefits that will come if they decide to send their kids here. And one thing that I want to stress through all of this is that we looked at several different vendors and several different partners to do this program. As we got down the road with several of them, one of our goals with this is to really keep a lot of the control locally. We want Nick to be able to control how this works at St. Joseph's. We have created a tool that Nick can use to have the dialogue. We are not going to set your tuition. We are not going to tell Nick what to charge people. We want Nick to have the control and St. Joe's to have the control on how this works for families. The goal is, as Nick was saying, we don't want anybody to not come if finances are a big question mark. And what this program does is I think it allows all of our schools that are going to be enrolling in this to have a conversation that if somebody says, I would love to send my kid to St. Joseph's, but I know I can't afford it. What this does is give Nick the ability to say, let's talk about that. Let's look at your financial situation and let's figure out a way to meet you where you're at. So if we come up with a number that we think based on all of your financial information will work for you, if you can do that, we would love to have you here and we will figure figure out the backside of that. So one of the, like I say, what we have done is we've created a tool that we'll walk through with you. But again, at the end of the day, this is really going to come down to the schools and their relationships with their families. I am never going to have a relationship with any of you as much as I would like to, that your local schools, any of your local schools are going to have the relationships. They're going to know things about your family that won't be able to come through an application that I would look at or that Gina would look at. But somebody locally is going to know those factors. So they're going to be able to take all sorts of different stuff into account that we might not know, or that we could never know because we don't have those relationships. So again, when we were looking at designing this, one of our big priorities was how do we keep this so the schools have a lot of local control and we can honor those relationships that the schools have with their families. So I thought if there's any general questions before we dive into it, what we'd like to do is maybe just walk you through the process of applying. And again, I can make some comments or answer questions as we go. But before we start that, are there any general questions I can address? Okay. So we thought we would just, I hope we don't block the camera because so I don't know if this is on your website yet.
Yes.
So yeah, on the St. Joseph's website, there should be a link to where you go to apply to take part in the variable tuition.
Does anyone have problems accessing that yet? No? Okay.
Has anybody started an application yet? Or done one?
So if you're new to the program, you'll go on this side, new to the variable tuition program, and it's important to look
She
at
needs
this.
the mic.
You have to use the mic.
Okay, thank you.
Here's what
Close
you
to the
need
mouth.
Sorry.
Close to the
I
mouth.
can't hear you.
But here's what you need before you apply. This is going to give you the information you need before you start the application. We're going to be looking at some of your annual income amounts. We'll need supporting documentation for those. So right off the bat, I want to point out, please take off any social security number. If you're submitting your IRS 1040, remove the social security number. You can remove birthdays. We don't want sensitive information. While the portal and the way that we're storing the information and the database itself is extremely secure, we just don't want to have the opportunity for that to get picked up by anybody but you.
Before we go too far, also try and speak up. Please know that we have to ask for some information and we will ask you to upload some information. This program is optional. You all do not have to do that. If you feel like we're asking for information you don't want to share, it is up to you and you don't have to do this. But we will ask for information, financial information of you, that we don't want any sensitive information. We don't want birth dates, we don't want social security numbers, don't need them, don't want them. But again, this is an optional program that you don't have to do if you're not comfortable sharing that information.
Right, and if you're in a circumstance where you're not comfortable sharing this information, then the default is that you'll just be asked to pay the full tuition rate, and if there's multiple child discounts, you'll get those still. But this is truly for the people who really truly need to pay less than what the full tuition rate is, in the right and just sense of the word. And when it comes to being able, for us to be able to offer you a discounted rate, a lot of the time scholarship organizations come into play, and we ask for a scholarship, you do need to provide an income document. Not necessarily for expenses. If there's extraordinary expenses, we'll just take your word for the number that you give us. So we'll ask for some annual expense information as well, and we'll walk through the application on this. Jay, I think I'm going to need your help. I can't type and hold the mic at the same time. So right off the bat, we're just going to ask you to create a, I can't really see this all that well. Okay, there we go. Need to see where I'm clicking. We're going to ask you to create an account. And so with this account, you'll give us your first name and last name. And then St. Joseph. We'll ask for your email address, and then we'll ask you to create a password. And it is going to require you to have at least a good password, which just means an uppercase, lowercase, and a number or a character. And then you'll select your school, St. Joseph, and then click here to see the terms of use of the application and the privacy policy. And it's in English and in Spanish towards the bottom right here. So hopefully that dispels any need for a different language. And if you don't want to do this application in English, you can absolutely choose one of the other many languages that we have here. All right, then you'll agree to the terms of use and the privacy policy, and then we'll start the application process. So I'll ask you to log in one last time. So right off the bat, you can't really see it with this lighting, but it's going to take you through 3 basic pages of information. The first one's just general family information. The second one is going to be focused on your financials, both income and expenses. And then the final one will be focused on your students. So you'll select your religion, and just in case you didn't catch what Catholic affiliated means, it means that you're a registered member of a parish and that you're tithing to that parish. So we select Catholic affiliated, members of St. Joseph here. Okay, we have a lot of parishes. And here you can enter, you'll be asked to enter the first and last name. It catches up from your login. And then your gender, your relationship to the student, and then you'd enter your spouse's name if you have a spouse or another parent or guardian, your marital status, your household first language or your preferred language, and then the birth year of the oldest parent or guardian. Is one parent an archdiocesan school teacher? We ask this question because if they are, we're looking at giving uniform discounts to all teachers for Catholic education for their students. And then if a parent or employee is parent is an employee of a school, parish, or the Archdiocese of Denver, you'll select yes, and then, okay, so what's their role and where are they employed? So maybe you're secretary of the school, or you work for, another ministry down here. Then we'll ask for your home address. Oops. And a phone number. And then how many parents or guardians does the student have? You can select up to 4. Other adults in the household, if you have brother or sister-in-law or grandparents or niece or nephew living with you, you can add them in here. And then number of K-8 students at this school. Does St. Joseph have a preschool?
Yes.
Okay, so you would not include the pre-K student here. That'll be included later on in daycare expense. So this is exclusively K-8 students, and then total number of children in the household, including all students above. So we'll just say there's only 1. So now we're going to look at the income and expenses. So if you have questions on the type of documentation that we need to upload here, you can refer to this little excerpt here, or if what you think you need to upload isn't up here, then you can always ask the school, and we'll be in communication to see if it's a legitimate document. So
Before we move on in this section, I did want to point out that if internet access or doing this online, Deb will probably strangle me when she hears this, but if that is an issue for anyone, call the school. And we've set it up so there's kind of like a backdoor way the school can enter this information for you. So again, we don't want this to be a stumbling block to anybody. The school can help you do this online as well.
good point, thanks Jay. So first question is going to be your adjusted gross income. So let's say it's $40,000 a year, essentially, yes. And then you would upload the document here, whether it's your 1040 or your W-2 or your pay stub, anything that we can use to verify that this letter is, or that this number is true. But if you have your 1040, if you file your taxes and you have deductions on your adjusted gross income, And we're just gonna ask for these numbers. And the reason we're doing that is because we ask for a lot of these in a different way later on in the application, so we're not double counting. So if you receive alimony, child support, welfare, Medicaid, food stamps, or other assistance, then you would select yes here, the annual amount received. If it's Medicaid, don't worry about an amount. But for any of the others, put in the annual amount received and then upload the document that you want to attach to this. And this is all, you can do this on your phone too if you have a nice big phone where it's like easy to see all of this stuff and you have all of those things. You can take a picture of your 1040 if you have it in your hand and upload it. That'll work for us. If you receive pensions, retirement, disability, or Social Security benefits, we'll ask for the annual amount and a document to support. And then if you receive any other unreported income, then we'll ask for that annual amount and a document to support that as well. And then the value of your liquid assets, and that's just your cash, your checking, your savings, and any brokerage accounts that you have, we'll ask you for that amount here, so we'll just say that's 0. We'll ask for your annual rent or mortgage expense, and this is just to help account for if you're paying a crazy amount of money for rent, we want to make sure that we're taking that into consideration. The annual employee or self-paid health insurance expense, and then annual out-of-pocket medical expense. Number of children in daycare, after school, or pre-K, you can select here, and then you'll enter that annual amount paid. So it's important to remember to annualize all of these amounts so you're not only entering, oh, I'm paid $500. We're looking at 12 months of that. We ask if you tithe to your parish or the Archbishop's Catholic Appeal, and then the annual amount of those combined tithes. And then if you have students at a local Catholic high school, that doesn't really apply for you guys, unfortunately, because there's not many Catholic high schools around here. So for the most part, I can imagine this is going to be no for you. Additional information about your family finances. Here's where you have an opportunity to communicate with the school if there's something extraordinary going on in your family. If you're helping pay for, you know, somebody else's medical expenses, if you're helping to support somebody who you normally wouldn't, if somebody in the family lost a job or you got your hours cut, you can explain all of that here. And this helps us get a better picture rather than just that 1040 number above. Does anybody else contribute to tuition for your students? We know that a lot of families, that, you know, sending a kid to a Catholic school, it takes the whole family to do. And so we just want to help understand who's contributing, how much did they contribute last year. And then here you just want, we're asking you to acknowledge that this is a true and accurate representation of your family's financial circumstances in the last year, and agree to comply with requests for documentation to verify income and expenses with your school. You know, if you forgot a document, this is all it's saying is that you're, yes, I will deliver that document to the school if they need it. So then we'll move on to...
Yeah, just a couple things to point out here. What we're trying to do with this is we're trying to get to a good financial snapshot of what your situation is. So we want to take your income, but then look at extraordinary expenses. We worked with some different organizations and saw some really good research that we used to, you know, everybody's kind of got the same level of expenses based on their income. We want to be able to account for anything extraordinary. So if you're taking care of a sick mom, or if you've got a whole bunch of kids in daycare, or stuff that's out of the ordinary, we want to take that into account and help give you credit for that. If you're sending kids to a Catholic high school, if you're making a lot of ties to a church, all those things, we want to give you credit for that and get the truest picture we can of your financial position. That's why we ask for all information.
All right, so now it gets to the very easy part, just telling us about your student. So all we're going to ask for is the student's first and last name, and then their date of birth, their gender, whether they're Hispanic or not. And then if you are Hispanic, you'll just select white here. The only reason that we do this is because the United States Census tracks race and ethnicity this exact same way. So in order to keep our metrics right, this is how we track as well. And then any other race or ethnicity that's not listed here, you would just enter that right here. Is the student new to the school or are they returning? So let's say they're new and next year they're entering the first grade. And then you'll just enter your students one at a time. So that's my only student, so I'm going to hit complete application. If I had another, I just add another student and it's the same exact submission. So now it just says, thanks for submitting your application. We have your information now and we'll be in touch once we determine tuition for your students. So really all this is saying is that school got your info and now it's on them to communicate with you. And for the most part, I think your school is going to be very responsive when they see your applications. They're going to get in there and think, okay, let's work through this. And there's a review portal as well. So if you want to review your application, you'll just click there and right off the bat here, okay, so here's my application I submitted, 2018-19 school year, my student. You can't see it, but this says, has the school verified your application? No, not yet. Once they do, then that will display as yes. There's another item right here where it says, are there any items outstanding on your application? If there are, then this is an explanation area. So if I need an extra document, the school can communicate and type it right in there. And then if I want to view the details of everything that I just applied for, it'll take me right here. So right off the bat, you'll be able to see at the top, okay, per my application, I'm eligible for Seeds of Hope. I'm not eligible for ACE scholarships, but I am eligible for Schmitz Family Foundation. The great news is that if you're eligible for Seeds of Hope, we're going to automatically consider you because we get this information as well. So ACE and Schmitz are a separate application process, but we know your school still is going to need help with that funding to help make up the difference between what they ask you to pay and the actual cost to educate the child. So that's just a good information piece and kind of a little marker for you to know, okay, I think I'm going to be asked to apply for this. Otherwise, you can go through and look and just take a peek. Okay, everything looks spot on. If I forgot to upload a document, then I can just click here. Okay, you know, I see I had an outstanding item. I can go in and resolve that on my own. And then otherwise, you can hit back and just wait for the school to get in touch with you. If you want to visit St. Joe's.
Yeah, so a couple of things to stress there. Again, the good news is you won't have to fill out a separate Seeds of Hope application if you are eligible for a Seeds of Hope scholarship, which is, and then on scholarshiping, the one thing we need to point out is, like you saw in that one, it says I'm eligible for a Schmitz Family Scholarship. So what's going to happen is when your information gets submitted, it's going to go to the school. And again, we recognize that there is no one-size-fits-all that can work for every school. So that's why we didn't want to spit a number back from you. We want your information to go through the model, then to go to the school, and the school is going to have the ability to adjust the formula based on what they know about your situation. Again, honoring those relationships and their knowledge and their relationship with you guys. Nick or Deb is going to be able to look at those numbers first and say, you know, we know this family's in this situation, what the formula says is a little too high for them, or we know that's a lot lower than what they paid last year, let's move it up. So that's why the schools are going to be able to look at the formula and kick back and make any adjustments on a local level that they know that they should make. But if they give you a number and it's lower than the full tuition, and part of that is going to be dependent on the scholarship. So if you are eligible for a scholarship, and say, to use round numbers as an example, if somebody from St. Joe's calls you and says, your tuition is going to be $3,000 for this year. If you can pay that, we'll let you come to the school. That's what you're going to be expected to pay. So then if you go and, if you're eligible for a Seeds of Hope scholarship or a Smith scholarship, those scholarships are not going to reduce that $3,000. They're going to go to the school to make up the difference to pay the school back for offering you that discount. So that's, you know, it's not like, okay, the school says if I pay $3,000, if Seeds of Hope gives me $1,000, then I'm down to $2,000. That's not how it works. If the school tells you a number, that's the number you're going to be expected to pay. I hope that makes sense. Yes, sir.
So a couple questions. One, as we're filling this out, is there an online, is there a help desk, is there a frequently asked questions section where we can go to and get help as we're filling out all this documentation and populating all the info?
There's a help document, right?
We have that for the school.
We have, the easiest thing to do would be to work with the school.
Got it, okay. So come in live and talk to
Yeah, or call them, yeah.
And the other one was, blanking now, but I'll come back.
And I did want to, I don't want to get too technical, but our system is built on a thing called Caspio Bridge, which uses the same security that Amazon does and the highest level of Microsoft security. So from a online security standpoint, we're extremely comfortable that it's the highest online security that we can have for it.
And the other one was, as far as status, is it either approved or pending, or the different sequences of the application as you submit it?
I think that's going to depend on how the school manages it. Yeah, so on the back end, what that would look like is, have I reviewed the family's application? Do I have everything complete? Am I all done with this application? Then the school's going to check yes, and then that's when your application is verified.
So as the end user, as you're looking at it, checking in on your application, it's just going to pretty much be a thumbs up or
Thumbs up, thumbs down, and then that's kind of an indicator that the school's going to be really darn close to having the number for you. Yeah.
Yeah, we would hope, the hope would be that you're not constantly having to go back and check your status and somebody from the school will reach out to you.
Right.
Where does the money come from? Like, is it a no? I just don't understand who's paying the extra money that we're not.
We have, it's,
Not to get too far off of it, but all parishes in the Archdiocese support Catholic schools through their offertories. That pot of money used to be something called the Catholic School Assistance Fund. It's doled out to the schools. Now that's come under the purview of Seeds of Hope as the school fund. So that's where the majority of that comes from, is from. Again, all parishes in the Archdiocese, since education is such a priority for the Archbishop and for the Archdiocese, all parishes in the Archdiocese contribute to that. And yeah, we hustle a lot. Seeds of Hope hustles a lot to raise money for scholarships and everything else too. So,
just to piggyback on that, so from the school's perspective, the school, if I'm understanding correctly, the school is not losing out on revenue for whether this program brings in more students,
Right.
or if it gives discounts to current students, the school still makes out.
yes.
Okay.
And the goal, one way to look at it is, if you think about if we can increase enrollment, the school's expenses are going to be pretty much fixed. They're here. If a classroom has 18 or 22 kids, it's still going to cost the same. The expenses are going to be the same. If they have a classroom of 18, then they add 4 more to get up to 22. Those 4 kids have now found revenue that the school didn't have before. So there's always a gap between the school's expenses and its revenues. If we can bring in more students, that revenue bar is going to come up and make that gap smaller. That's part of the reason we want to do this, is to bring more people, and this will generate more revenue. Yes, sir.
There's not a specific line item under the expenses for college costs.
Right.
Should they be included in the extra, and will it matter more if, other than the fact that it costs more?
Right.
But Catholic college, it seems to be, should count for a little more.
And we haven't taken that into account this year. Again, looking at it, that one, we talked about it and we couldn't come up with a good answer to that one, because where you send your kids is your choice, and the expense of that can be so different that we couldn't come up with a good way to, since that's not really an extraordinary expense, that's something you've chosen to do. I mean, if you send your kid to the local community college, or if you send them to Duke, how do you make that a justifiable thing across? So it's something that we've talked about. We've submitted that calculation this year. Yes, ma'am.
We talked about,
the ACE scholarships, are they still going to be available?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that will be part of your responsibility. The one screen that Gina showed where it said you're eligible for Seeds of Hope, Schmitz, or ACE. If you're eligible for those scholarships, you're going to be expected. That's going to be part of the family's responsibility to apply for those. Because again, if the school's going to discount your tuition, they're going to need some help making that up. And that will be part of the communication from the school. It's going to say, okay, we can offer you this tuition level, but you got to go and you got to get your ACE money, and you got to get your Schmitz money, or whatever money is available to you to help us fill in that gap. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how do you make corrections to numbers you type in?
You're gonna have to work in conjunction with the school to make a correction, so just double check everything before you enter it.
It can be done. The school can go in
And the reason that we did that is because all of these pull into calculations, right? And so the school's gonna see a number that runs through our calculator, so if you're constantly going through and changing the number, then it's really gonna change what they're seeing. And we don't have a notification system for that, so we just want the application as the application. If you messed up a number because you're human, then we'll figure out how to fix it, but it'll be working with the school.
So it'll be good training when you all start sending your kids to college and do the FAFSA application.
So it's like it's on the school. So, no, anyways, if you submitted something and you're like, oh, we forgot to leave it, we left this out, or that number was incorrect, maybe you submitted something and you're just waiting for your accountant to send something tax-wise back, contact the school, and I can contact Jay or Gina or one of the other people in the office, and we can work with you. The whole point of this, guys, is we want to work with you, and now we have this resource that we didn't have before. So apply for, I don't want you to think, well, I won't qualify, okay? Because if you're coming asking the school, hey, I need some assistance here, hey, I can't afford this, what do you think my first question is going to be? Did you apply for Seeds of Hope? Did you apply for ACE? Did you apply for Schmitz? So I need you to go through that process first if you are seeking for some additional help. And like I said, we do have some other donors out there. This isn't our only resource, but it's a really good resource because then it doesn't pull from our personal tuition assistance fund. That's the nice thing. So this is something additional that will help out a lot of families, hopefully some new families too that I've been hearing say, we couldn't afford to come here last year. We really wanted to. Does anyone have any questions of me as far as how the school is going to be? If any of you are ever confused, you can come in. I'm willing to sit down with you on the computer. Carlos is going to be meeting with our Latino families in the library here shortly to kind of go over some things. I'm going to be getting together on the 23rd with Anna, myself, and Miss O'Neill for our Latino families to come in, and we can work with filling out the applications online in the library. I'm always willing to work with any of you if you're saying, oh, I'm just not comfortable, I'd rather fill it out with you, Mr. Blanco. Part of this too is, for some of us, it gets a little personal because now it's like, oh, Mr. Blanco, you're gonna know like all about my financials. Well, that's part of getting the assistance is we have to know how much you're working with here. Okay, so that's the reality of it. Again, you do not have to fill this out though. If you're like, you know what, I just don't feel like messing with, disclosing all my financials, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Again, like I said, my job is to increase enrollment here at St. Joseph Catholic School so that then it keeps tuition low for everybody. Okay, like Jay said, tomorrow if I get 30 new families, let's say we're saying 180 kids are coming next year. If I get 30 new families in here and they're paying $3,000, that's what, $100,000 extra the school has now that we didn't even budget for, that's just going to help the school out additionally. So, yes, sir.
So it sounds like a huge component of this moving forward in order to lower the cost of tuition is is, what's the community doing, or the parish doing, or the school doing as far as marketing efforts to go out and grab more of those families from the community, from the public schools, and go out and capture that audience? What is that kind of like the first and foremost effort right now?
Yes. Well, all last month I didn't have a day off. I went to every single parish. Carlos went with me to Holy Family and was able to translate. Basically, he just talked the whole time. I just said, "Hola, me llamo Nick Blanco," and that was it. Because, I didn't want. It's just better if he speaks and he knows basically what I was going to say. And yeah, we've been getting new families in here just from going to those parishes. Now, the best thing is word of mouth. So my sort of commitment to you guys is I want to make this school better. I want you as parents to be happy, because if you're happy, what are you going to do? You're going to tell friends, you're going to tell family, you're going to tell other people. Okay, if you're not happy and somebody asks, where do your kids go? What are you going to say? Well, they go to St. Joe's, but you don't want to go there. Okay, so I want to make sure that we are providing the best education. And my goal, my commitment to you guys is I want to make sure that I'm pushing the teachers, pushing them to where they can be the best they can possibly be. There's always room for improvement. I think we have a good school here. I think we have good teachers overall. Do I think we can all do better? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? So that's something that I see it. It's like we're almost there, but we need to take some of those steps. And sometimes it's some uncomfortable conversations that I have to have. But that's what needs to take place. Okay, I want your kids to get the best possible education here. I want your kids to, when they leave here, hopefully in 8th grade, they have those tools that no matter what is thrown at them in life, they can succeed and they can steer clear of all that junk that's out there. Yes?
So, as Richard was talking, it sounds like there's nothing to lose. The worst that happens is we waste your time looking through it and you say, you're paying the tuition. That's the worst that happens is we pay the tuition.
You're not wasting my time, first of all.
But there's nothing to lose by anybody playing this.
There's nothing to lose. So that's why I wanted to clear that sort of rumor that was out there, misconception of if you apply through this and it's like, oh, you actually make quite a bit, you need to pay more than the $5,615. No, do not. So there is nothing to lose. Yes, you apply through it, it says you don't. But I really want to encourage the families that you might be right on that teeter. And if you're saying, well, I don't think we qualify for it, well, then you're losing out. And then if you come to me and you say, hey, I need some help, what am I going to say? Did you apply for Seeds of Hope? Did you apply for ACE? Did you apply for, Schmidt's Family Foundation? So, yes.
There were a couple other things on behalf of another mom who can come with one kid here. It might have been a typo, but there was a chart that was sent out too in that email that made it look like if you only have one kid here, you're not eligible for the affiliated discount.
No, that's incorrect, because the affiliated is the 5615, non-affiliated is the 6,665, I believe.
You can get that if you have one kid, right?
Yes, one kid, absolutely. That doesn't change. No, sorry, no. That you still get that affiliated even with one kid. And it only gave 3 kids. Now, some people have 4, 5, 6 kids. Obviously, we can sit down with those families and figure out what does that tuition look like. Yes.
Assuming the program works and it leads to more student enrollment, have there been discussions and are there plans for St. Joe's staff and the infrastructure to handle that increase in student enrollment?
Yeah, absolutely. I will just share, we had 42 families at Holy Family that were, said, hey, we'd like to find out more. Now, not all 42 of those families, let's say on average they had 2 kids. That would be adding 80 plus kids to our school. I would have to go look for new teachers, and that's okay. Yes, we have empty classrooms right now because I think early 2000s we were at our max around 300 and some? 340-ish, okay? So we do have the capability to handle that. A good thing would be we had so many kids here, now we have a wait list. Now we're, that's what my hope is. My hope is to increase enrollment significantly after this year, once it becomes a reality, because how many of you kind of feel like it's this like unicorn kind of out there, like Seeds of Hope kind of sounds nice, but what is, I mean, that's what it can feel like. So this is nice. We're in the first round. We're one of 13 schools that get to take advantage of this. And so we kind of get to be the guinea pig, and Jay's over here like, okay, let's see how this goes. But no, I mean, God's going to provide. God will provide. He always does. He always does. And yes, I would love to see this school be back to 300, maybe even 400. And then I can say, hey, we need to look at expanding here. What do we do? So yeah, that would be the goal. I'm not looking at, I don't want to be satisfied with staying at 176 kids. Absolutely not.
Can I add one thing to that? One of the things, this is a program that there are several schools that have been doing a program very similar to this already. One of the things that we're going to learn from their experience was, say we bring in a whole bunch of new kids, how do you keep them? I mean, integrating those new kids is something, you know, it's a little different coming to a Catholic school, especially if you're, you know, if this is not where you start. How do we integrate those kids and keep them here? So we've got some great leadership training that we're going to help Nick with, because again, if you bring in new kids, how do you integrate them, make them part of the family, so after they're not when you're one and done, and they're like, this is way, you know, we never felt like we fit in. That's a big initiative for us as well, as part of all of this, is how do we integrate, if we bring in all these, have an influx of new families, which hopefully we do, how do we integrate and make them feel like they're part of the family? You know, simple things like just checking in with them once a week. How's it going? How are you feeling? How's the teachers? You got friends? Those are the kind of things, again, learning from others' experiences that we want to bring to places like here.
Anyone else? Yes?
When is the deadline to submit, and when would we expect to hear back?
So for the early registration, that would be the, what do we say, 20th? So you need to register. So first you just register, then you would go through this process. I'm really going to encourage my staff to get back to families ASAP. I'm probably going to be calling the Seeds of Hope quite a bit in the initial, once we get kind of things going, because this is new for us. So I would ask for your patience. If you're, somebody had a question, how are we going to know, like, do we need to check? If you have a question and you're like, hey, I haven't heard anything, it's been 2 days, call us and say, where are we at in that process? Because again, sometimes we might need to, oh, you know what, we need to really look at that, we need to get on top of that. But we will do our best to make it, you know, in a reasonable allotment of time, but get back to you as soon as possible. Yes?
We've got, our golf tournament is in June. Our biggest fundraiser is in November. It's called Evening of Hope. We're having I wish I could put it up on the screen, we're having an NCAA contest. It's a voluntary donation starting Monday. It's seedspicksforkids.com. Voluntary donations for that. You could win a Von Miller autographed football helmet. So we do fundraisers all the time. We write a lot of grants. We have a great program called Adopt a Students, where we tie a donor for $3,000. We tie them to an individual kid. They get to follow that kid through school. So we're hustling.
I see your smile, just kind of cool. What percentage of the fundraisers go towards like the actual scholarship, or is it separate money?
It's not. We kind of have two buckets. One bucket is all the stuff that's coming from the offertories from the archdiocese around the parish. The second bucket is what we raise. It's about 70-30. And everything we raise in the first bucket is what funds the Hope Scholarships.
Just one other thing I wanted to add. I know when we sent home the registration packets, and then we sent like a letter flock note like 8 hours later the next day. Was that how I wanted it to go out? No. But I feel like it's important tuition to get so that everyone knows, so they can plan ahead. I was giving you guys information as soon as I got it basically and was ready to release it. So no, was it nice and packaged and perfect? No, it was not. I'll admit that. I'm hoping moving ahead in the future, we'll have that plan out next year by December, and that way January, when school choice comes around, and we don't lose families that might be interested in coming here. Any other questions? Everyone's ready
Always
for...
great to be here, to come back home. Go Rams. Proud of them.
Again, we'll have this video posted. Karen will post it online in case you need to review it, or those of you that weren't able to make it tonight. If you have any other questions that you think of, shoot me an email, call. Email is probably best over spring break. I will be checking that email. And again, thank you guys. I really appreciate you all coming out tonight. It's taking out of your time to come here and ask these questions and find out more. And again, if something comes up, just call me or shoot me an email.
Two other things. Oh, go ahead.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There's a lot of really good information on denvercatholicschools.com. Visit that website. There's more documents there if you've got insomnia. But really a lot of good information there if you want to check. And again, whoever's following the NCAA, Seeds Picks for Kids.
Thank you. Okay, you guys have a good night.